Daniel folded another $20 bill into the small envelope hidden in the back of his dresser, believing he was quietly building a safer future, one paycheck at a time. Every payday felt like another small victory, because saving always gave him the comforting feeling that he was doing exactly what responsible adults were supposed to do. His friends upgraded their cars, booked weekend trips, and spent without much hesitation, while Daniel politely declined because he believed every dollar saved brought him closer to peace of mind. He never envied their spending because he was convinced patience would eventually reward him in ways they couldn't yet understand. Years passed, and the envelope became a savings account that slowly grew larger with every careful decision he made. The balance kept increasing, but the feeling he expected never seemed to arrive, leaving him wondering why security always felt just beyond reach. Instead of feeling calmer, he found himself checking the account more often, almost as if reassurance had become something he needed to borrow from a number. It didn't make sense. He wasn't buried in debt, making reckless purchases, or living beyond his means, yet the anxiety he expected saving to erase still quietly followed him everywhere. One evening, he closed his banking app and asked himself a question that felt strangely uncomfortable. If saving money was supposed to create financial security, why did he still feel like he was one unexpected expense away from losing everything? That single question would slowly unravel one of the oldest financial beliefs most people never think to question. Before we continue, welcome to Lyon Invests. This channel isn't about getting rich overnight. It's about questioning the financial beliefs that quietly shape the way we earn, spend, save, and build wealth. If that's the kind of thinking you're looking for, I'd love to have you subscribe. Now, let's continue because Daniel's question turns out to be much bigger than it first appears. At first glance, the answer seems obvious because saving money is unquestionably a good habit, yet good habits and complete financial strategies are not always the same thing. That difference is easy to overlook because people naturally confuse what protects money with what actually creates lasting financial strength. The belief begins long before anyone earns their first paycheck through parents, teachers, advertisements, and everyday conversations that quietly repeat the same simple message: save your money. The advice isn't wrong because saving protects you from emergencies, reduces financial stress, and gives you options when life becomes unpredictable. But somewhere along the way, many people quietly began believing something the advice never actually promised. They assumed that saving itself would eventually produce wealth. That small misunderstanding changes everything because preserving money and growing money follow completely different mathematical rules, even though they sound almost identical. Once that distinction becomes visible, Daniel's question stops being about his savings account and starts becoming a question about the invisible job he expected his savings to perform. And if money was quietly being asked to do something it was never designed to do, perhaps the real problem wasn't Daniel's discipline, but the belief guiding that discipline. That possibility opens the door to a deeper story about psychology, mathematics, and the hidden reason so many disciplined savers eventually discover that the biggest lie about saving money was never that saving is bad. It was believing that saving alone would be enough. That realization feels uncomfortable because it challenges a belief most people have carried for so long that it no longer feels like a belief at all. It feels like common sense. Common sense rarely gets questioned. Yet history is filled with ideas that sounded obvious until someone asked a better question, and personal finance is no different. Daniel had never actually asked what his savings were supposed to accomplish beyond simply becoming a larger number. The larger the balance became, the more he expected it to produce a feeling of certainty that no account balance could ever permanently provide. The human brain has an interesting habit, because it quickly adapts to improvement, making yesterday's financial goal feel surprisingly ordinary once it becomes today's reality. Psychologists call this adaptation, but you don't need the term to recognize the feeling. Think about the first time you reached a savings milestone that once felt impossible, only to discover that after a few weeks, it simply became your new normal. The excitement quietly faded. Without noticing, your mind replaced one target with another because progress often changes expectations faster than it changes emotions. Daniel wasn't chasing luxury or status. He was chasing a feeling that kept moving every time he got a little closer. The strange part is that this pattern doesn't only happen with saving because it quietly appears in income, careers, houses, investments, and almost every goal people believe will finally make them feel secure. The destination keeps moving. That's why two people with completely different bank balances can experience almost identical financial anxiety despite living very different financial lives. Their numbers are different, but their expectations are following the same invisible pattern. Saving money wasn't creating the anxiety, but it also wasn't solving the psychological cycle that kept redefining what enough looked like. That raises another question. If the problem isn't the savings account itself, then why does simply watching the balance grow eventually stop changing the way people feel? The answer begins with understanding that savings have one primary purpose. They buy time when life becomes uncertain, not permanent peace of mind. An emergency fund protects your future choices by giving you breathing room when unexpected events interrupt your plans. That's incredibly valuable. But protection and growth are two completely different jobs, just like a seatbelt protects you during a crash, but doesn't move the car toward its destination. Saving performs one job extremely well, yet many people quietly expect it to perform another job it was never designed to do. Once Daniel understood that difference, he realized he hadn't been disappointed by his savings account. He had been disappointed by an expectation he never realized he was carrying. And once that expectation changed, an even more important question appeared. If saving preserves today's money, then what actually gives tomorrow's money the chance to become something more? That question shifts the conversation because preserving wealth and creating wealth follow different paths, even though both begin with the same dollar. The difference seems almost invisible. A dollar sitting in a savings account stays available for tomorrow, but a dollar working inside a productive asset begins participating in something larger than itself. One protects purchasing power for a while. The other has the potential to create additional value over time. Neither is wrong because each serves a completely different purpose within a healthy financial life. Daniel had unknowingly judged every dollar by only one question. Is it safe? He had never asked the second question. Is this dollar doing anything while I wait? That simple change in perspective transformed the way he looked at money, because idle money and productive money may appear identical on a bank statement while behaving very differently over time. The numbers can look similar today, yet the years slowly reveal a growing difference that wasn't visible in the beginning. Time becomes the hidden ingredient. Most people notice dollars, but rarely notice what those dollars are doing every day, every month, and every year. A savings account is designed to preserve access to your money because you'll probably need some of it before long. An investment, however, asks something entirely different because it rewards patience by allowing businesses, innovation, and economic growth to work on your behalf. That's an entirely different relationship with time. Instead of asking, how much money do I have today? The better question quietly becomes, what is my money becoming while I live my life? That question feels unfamiliar because nearly every conversation about saving focuses on balances instead of behavior. Yet behavior determines outcomes. Two people can save exactly the same amount every month, but if one allows a portion of those savings to become productive, while the other lets every dollar remain idle indefinitely, their futures slowly begin separating. The separation isn't dramatic at first, because mathematics is usually patient before it becomes obvious. That's why compounding often feels disappointing in the beginning. Early progress looks almost ordinary, making it easy to believe that nothing meaningful is happening beneath the surface. But mathematics doesn't ask for your excitement, because it continues working whether you notice it or not. The greatest changes often arrive quietly, hidden inside years that looked almost uneventful while they were happening. Daniel finally realized that the biggest lie about saving money was never that saving doesn't matter. It was believing that preserving money and growing money were the very same thing, when in reality, they are two completely different jobs that work best together rather than alone. Once Daniel saw that distinction, he stopped asking whether saving was enough and started asking whether every dollar in his life had a clear purpose. The question changed everything. Some dollars existed to protect him from uncertainty, while others could patiently participate in the long-term growth of businesses, markets, and the economy. For the first time, his money wasn't sitting in one pile with one expectation attached to every dollar. Each dollar had a job. That sounds like a small change, yet it quietly transforms the way financial decisions are made because purpose creates clarity where confusion once lived. When every dollar is expected to accomplish the same goal, disappointment becomes almost inevitable. But when each dollar has a different responsibility, the system begins making sense. Savings no longer have to create wealth. Investments no longer have to cover next month's emergency. Income no longer carries the impossible burden of solving every financial problem overnight. Instead of forcing one tool to do every job, Daniel finally began matching each financial tool with the purpose it was actually designed to serve. The anxiety that once followed every bank balance slowly became quieter because he stopped measuring his entire financial future with a single number. His attention shifted from how much money he had to how his financial system was working, and systems usually matter more than moments. Looking back, Daniel realized the biggest lie had never been the advice to save money, because that advice remains one of the most important foundations of financial stability. The lie was believing that the foundation was the entire house. A foundation supports something greater, but by itself, it was never meant to become the finished structure. Saving protects your future. Investing helps build it. Neither replaces the other, because each quietly depends on the other to create a stronger financial life. Perhaps that's why so many people feel disappointed after doing everything they were told, because they followed one chapter of the story while believing it was the entire book. Daniel didn't become wealthy the day he understood this, and nothing about his bank balance changed overnight. What changed was the way he thought, because he stopped expecting one financial habit to solve every financial problem and began seeing money as a collection of different tools working together. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside the biggest lie about saving money. Not that you should save less, but that you'll never look at a saved dollar the same way again once you understand it was only meant to be the beginning of the story.